He's turning us on.
When it appears on the monitor, we're live. Well, I'll alert you so I have a better view. We are live.
Okay. First off, I want to thank you for inviting me to come and share with you some of my thoughts about the Act and about the law and about the roles that you play, because it's an essential role for the maintenance of the Old Kings Highway Historic District. That is, you folks are where it begins as far as the regional is concerned, because it starts with you, with the initial interaction with people that come before you for permission to construct or to demolish property within the designated historic district. And so your role as the initial decision makers in the process is really very critical. And in fact, the way the statute has evolved or was set up, the local committee has a edge on the regional commission in the sense that when you go up on appeal, the question that is raised is appropriateness, demolition, whatever decision you make. And under the Act and the way it's been interpreted, that local knows best. That is, we've got 6 towns in the district. However, the local committee is sort of separate for each of the 6 towns. And as a result, deference is given to that decision-making power and authority. And the reason is that you folks live in the town, understand the town, you interact with the public, and you're the ones who should make the judgment on appropriateness or demolition. And that when you go up on appeal to the regional commission, the issue is whether or not the committee made a mistake. We're not supposed to, on the regional level, substitute our judgment of appropriateness for the judgment of the local committee. Now, obviously, we have some authority, just like the courts have some authority, to overrule if a mistake is made. But that threshold question is whether a mistake has been made by the local committee. And if there's no mistake, your decision would stand. If there is a mistake, then we get to determine, that is, the regional gets to determine whether to send it back to you, because we would annul the decision, and then we would have jurisdictional authority to make a decision on appropriateness or inappropriateness or demolition or whatever is being sought by the applicant. But we don't get to get there as long as there is no error or mistake on the part of you folks on the local level. And to me, that's always made a lot of good sense, because perhaps somebody in a different town doesn't have the flavor of the local town in which the applicant, in which the project is located. So that is something that preserves the local influence, the local ability to manage the Act on a local level. Now, thinking back over what gets us in trouble, which does unfortunately happen occasionally, and I've handed out an outline, a 3-page outline, which I use as a basis when I do these workshop type events for educating and not deliberating, but educating, and trying to relate what I've experienced in my years in working with the appeals and working with the district. And if you see in this outline, we do talk about having a certificate of exemption, certificate of demolition, certificate of appropriateness, and appeal petition. Those are the basics that all 6 towns utilize, and the forms and the format. It's the procedures that sort of get into where errors and mistakes happen. And you can see that number A, at the top of the list are the general laws of the Commonwealth. That is, there are 3 areas that become sources of conflict, sources of mistakes, errors. And it's interesting because to a large extent, these 3 areas, the conflict of interest law, the open meeting law, and the public records law, are universal in each of the towns, and they apply to all boards and all people serving in a public board position or public commission, ranging from the selectmen to the planning board to the Old Kings Highway Committee. And you, as members of a committee, have to adhere to the rules that are promulgated by the state governing conduct, governing what you do, when you do it, how you do it. And these are where we start to get into difficulty, because while the state has done a great job of mandating these and also assigning the enforcement of them to 3 different state entities, to which the Ethics Commission for the Conflict of Interest, the Attorney General's Office for the Open Meeting Law, and also for making sure that it is enforced and carried out. And then the Public Records Law falls under your state Secretary of State. Now, they have strengthened these. They did it about 5 or 6 years ago with reforms to force transparency in government, to give the public the ability to enforce towns, municipalities, board members, etc., to follow the rules and be transparent and sort of move away from what used to be called the old backroom decision-making that oftentimes occurred in small towns, and sort of created the illusion that maybe they couldn't trust their officials. And so they adopted a very strong set of regulations. And these regulations are introduced to you when you come on board, and you're also mandated to keep up with these 3 laws by taking the online courses that they give and learning what the open meeting law is, what conflict of interest is, and also what the public records require. And getting, unfortunately, what I've observed is over time, people become lax in complying with the three statutes or the 3 laws that are universally applied. And one of the things that causes, I think, this is you as individuals need to read these guides that are published by the state, that are online available, and keep them up to date. That is, every 2 years you're supposed to renew your certification or your compliance and your knowledge, because it's easy to sort of relax and say, oh, I know the open meeting law, I know conflict of interest, etc. But you find little quirks and sometimes changes that are adopted by the state, and it becomes a certain burdensomeness, particularly when you're doing your job on the Old Kings Highway, because you have so much to do. The Old Kings Highway takes so much of your time just checking out the applications that are coming through and trying to manage making proper decisions and trying to adhere to the requirements of determining appropriateness. And so it's easy to sort of neglect the basics of these 3 requirements. Now, at this point, I'm not going to spend more time on that because we don't have that much time. However, my intent is to have a question and answer period for you to bring any questions you want to throw at me. It's fine. But at this point, I want to try to get through the Old Kings Highway specific things and trust that you all, one way or another, have been exposed to conflict of interest, been exposed to the open meeting law, have been exposed to the public records law, because they are always with you. That is, they are things that, not just when you're in session, but when you're out of here, when you are talking to somebody and they ask you questions, or you're using your email, or you're doing something that you feel is perfectly normal and okay, and then when something goes wrong and somebody says, wait a minute, you know that all of your emails that have anything to do with Old Kings Highway or your role in Old Kings Highway is a public record. And the public is entitled to see it and to have a copy of it. And so you suddenly say, wait a minute, I just called John Stewart and talked to him or sent him an email, and lo and behold, now I'm in trouble because I didn't save that email and I didn't do it. I didn't do it intentionally to do anything wrong, but then lo and behold, when you read the public records law and what it requires of you, you suddenly say, whoops, I guess I shouldn't have done that. And that also, with the open meeting law, gets you into the process of serial conversations with different members, which is strictly prohibited, specifically prohibited in the open meeting law requirements, that a quorum can't deliberate, cannot, and should not be communicating. And a quorum for a meeting can be serial. That is, Bob could call John and talk to him, he could call Liz, he could call Cindy, he could call Paul, and suddenly there's a decision being made outside of the public scrutiny and the transparency requirements that have been imposed on you as public officials. So you need to be careful. You need to keep up with the guidebooks that are there online and recognize that they do govern your conduct both in a meeting and out of a meeting, so you live with them 24 hours a day. The good news is that the state has provided very good guidebooks, or whatever. They're kind of lengthy. They range from 80 pages to 50 pages down to 27 pages, I think. But it is important to be familiar with these so you don't get into trouble and we don't have problems where appeals come up, mistakes are made, and also there is some personal jeopardy with, like, the conflict of interest law, where, holy smokes, is this a conflict or not? And even when you take the quiz that they give you online, you won't get 100%. I don't think anybody could take that quiz and get 100% of the questions answered correctly.
Never have.
And it's good for you to be sensitive to it. Now, with my years of experience on conflict of interest, I would say, first off, if there's any money involved, you're in trouble. If there is any way to connect what's happening or going on, either you are doing work and you're being paid or something of that nature, you're getting yourself into deep water. And while, for the most part, it is your decision first on whether there's a conflict of interest. That is, because people have to sense the fact that they're in conflict of interest. It's not something where the chairman can say, oh, you're under conflict of interest. It is a personal thing to the individual board member to ascertain if they're in violation, and will be receiving a note from the State Ethics Commission, which you really do not want to do, and you do not want to put yourself in jeopardy of doing that. So the way to defend yourself or try to inoculate yourself from a conflict of interest is to study the guide that they have, that they publish, take the quizzes constantly. You're supposed to take them every 2 years, and follow the rules of avoiding conflict of interest. And one of the things that I've always done in my years as a municipal attorney and also as the commission's attorney is, when in doubt, don't. Conflict of interest is a deadly thing that you do not want to mess with. And so if you have to say, oh, I'm not going to sit on this hearing, that's the right decision you make if you feel you've got a conflict of interest. It is something where if you ignore it and you sit because you want to be heard or you want some other thing, you're putting yourself into harm's way. So avoidance, even if it means the committee doesn't have a 5-member, it has a 4-member, or it has a 3-member deciding on a project. So be it. We've got 2 alternates, and Paul's ready to step in, I'm sure, and for somebody that has a conflict of interest. But as I say, conflict of interest is something you need to be very wary of, and and your best defense is to understand the law, understand the rules and the recommendations on that requirement. Anyway.
Can I just say something at this point, because it's relevant? So in our extra materials that Lisa has given us for this evening, there is a request from a neighbor that specifically Liz Argo should recuse herself since her job creates a conflict of interest. So interestingly enough, we have a claim, and I'm hoping we will deal with that as part of the public's view of this letter, but I don't have a job anymore, so it's pretty much a mistaken identity.
No, I appreciate your bringing that up because it brings it home, so to speak, of the issue. And the problem with conflict of interest is, in part, the breadth with which it extends, because just having an appearance of a conflict can be viewed as a violation. That is, public officials are not supposed to appear that they are exercising their votes or making decisions with a conflict that the public sees, even though the public official may, as you said, I no longer have a job, I no longer have any conflict. It's still, the appearance sometimes can influence the process, and it is prohibited to have a appearance of conflict. So just as I say, I know, Liz, you're very familiar with the rules, and I respect and appreciate that, because it is very important to do your job. And your job is as a municipal employee. Incidentally, a municipal employee doesn't mean you're getting paid for your work. It means that you fit into that category of definition of a municipal employee. So you have to really drill into the situations. One thing that maybe Lisa would check on, whether the town of Yarmouth has designated the members of the Old Kings Highway as special municipal employees.
I believe we have been.
Okay, because that has a lower threshold of enforcement against you. And the Board of Selectmen have the authority under 268A to designate board members and people who are not really getting paid substantial amounts of money to work for the town are designated as special municipal employees, but you have to have had that vote, and it's good to check once in a while, because sometimes those votes get lost.
Yeah, and that protects us from liability.
Yeah, it's being cautious and just basically trying to follow the rules, but you got to know the rules to follow them. So anyway, I'm going to leave this topic now and get more into the bulletin and into your role as committee members. and giving your time and attention to the job. And of course, I start out by saying, review the bulletin, the March 1, 22 bulletin, not the one previously. Keep up to date and basically familiarize yourself with what it says. I've heard from time to time some of the commissioners who are the chairs for the 6 towns reference and say, this is the Bible of how we do this. And in truth, it is, because our act is what's called a special act of the legislature. That is, every year when the legislature meets, bills are filed and bills work their way through the sausage factory. Oh, I hope they don't take advantage of that, but anyway, and come out with new laws. And those laws are listed as chapters of special act, or chapters of laws that are created in a particular year. So each year you get a set of laws that the legislature will create. And our laws begin back in 73 with the special act that's called 470 of the Acts of 1973. And that was the initial version of the Old Kings Highway Act. And a little bit of history. When we enacted this, we thought we had a pretty good bill, but within short time of trying to implement it, we had 9 towns then in it. Eastham, Bourne, and Harwich were also members of the Old Kings Highway District. People got very upset with the way it was being administered. A lot of people felt that their home was their castle and they didn't need the Old Kings Highway to tell them what color to paint their house or whatever. And at that time, we were all feeling our way along. Incidentally, I was there at the time when this act was created. I was the Barnstable representative to the planning entity that created it. And I was young and wet behind the ears and so forth, but really attracted to the law and the concept of what it could do to improve the visual quality and preserve the north side of Cape Cod. That is, when this was enacted, it was shortly after the Seashore Park was created for the Outer Cape and for the Upper Cape. And people were very concerned about the over-commercialization of Cape Cod at that time. And so the feeling was, gee, on Sunday afternoon, we get in our car and we don't go down Route 28, we go down Route 6A, because they are extremely different in appearance. And that was a driving force behind the movement to create this act in the first place, that it was done to protect everything north of the Mid-Cape Highway and preserve the original Old Colony Road that came from Plymouth all the way down and along the Cape. And the feeling was that we needed to have protection so that 6A did not become as, let's use the word, inappropriate in appearance. And we didn't lose all of those captain's houses and all those
Features.
attractive places that are over there that draw people here and bring the tourists here who spend money and like to kind of drive along 6A and enjoy that appearance, and also the scenic roads in that area. And so the concept was we needed special protection because at the time we did this, aesthetic zoning was frowned upon, and not, you couldn't put zoning bylaws based on aesthetics, appearance. However, the historic district concept allowed and made appearance a very important aspect to appropriateness. That is, preserving the appearance, having harmony in the streetscape, having properties that were being built or added have an appearance that blends in and doesn't have a shock effect. if you get into the issue, or when you get into the issue of appropriateness and deal with the question of determining appropriateness, you'll look at the standards, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself with that. But the concept is to have compatibility, not incongruity, with appropriateness. That is the concept that if you drive down 28 here, and you have all these commercial developments that are competing for the eye of the tourist driving down the streetscape. So what happens is one person puts up the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Another person puts up another extreme example of appearance. And they sort of shock you, because in commercialism, you're fighting for your tourist or your customer to see you, to know you're there, and that you've got something that they want, whether it be food, whether it be trinkets, whatever it may be. And so for advertising and promoting and getting people who are just driving down the road for a 2-week vacation to come to your establishment, you want it to be so visual that it catches the eye of the person driving down the street. That's in contrast to what happens with 6A, where the drive is more controlled, that is the appearance of the drive, and that you see these houses without getting a shock effect. In other words, you can imagine, because you do sit on these applications, the ones that come in that you're saying, gosh, that isn't going to blend in very well, that's not going to be compatible with the neighboring properties. And you get this kind of shock effect of the incongruity that takes your eye and captures your eye, and you see this and you're saying, ooh, wow, what is that? And it is that kind of judgment that really is very important when you're thinking about appropriateness, when you're trying to make a decision. Is this house, is this sign, is this structure going to fit? Is it going to harmonize? And that's why when we advise people to do a 360 on any application, a 360 meaning you go out to the site of where this building or structure is going to be, and you do a 360, a 360, talking with my hands and get in trouble. A 360 is the concept of the setting for a proposed building or structure. And you see what is in the area by standing and looking at what one sees around where the site is. And that allows you to see the neighborhood, see what type of houses are there, what kind of houses, what in harmony is being replicated, what is being brought in that is very different and will potentially create a shock effect to the eye as you drive down the streetscape and see the buildings and see what is there. And that is a fundamental part of determining its appropriateness or inappropriateness. And I'm sure that you all who have been doing these judgments appreciate the importance of a site visit. As I strongly recommend, what you do is you use Google to find the location of where this property is, and then you go out and you do the 360, you look around, you can even drive around the neighborhood. And a fundamental other thing to keep in mind is that you do want a level of variety. That is, cookie cutter is not appropriate. I'm sure you're all familiar with the ranch developments that came in the 60s and 70s and how they sort of cookie-cutted a particular plan and everybody had the same house. We want variety to a certain level, but not a shock variety, not one that's so overwhelmingly kind of out of character. And also when you look at Section 10 of the Act, which is really your key for rendering your judgments. That is, when you take the statute, Section 10 directs what the committee is to consider in determining to either approve a removal and demolition or to do a judgment of appropriateness for a new building or dwelling. And they're two very different sections. That is, when you look at this handout that I've given to you, it's always been my opinion that demolition and removal has only two factors to consider, and that is, first off, the architectural and historic significance of the structure that's being proposed for demolition or removal, and two, the public interest. What is the public interest in preserving this structure or building versus, gee, maybe it doesn't have historic value or architectural value, and that the public really doesn't have an interest here. Those are the two factors. Oftentimes, people blend in the appropriateness theory and some of the other things, but when you look at the statute is very clear when it talks about demolition or removal of just having those two factors. Now, when you go to appropriateness, you've got about 6 factors set forth in there that you're supposed to look at and utilize to determine appropriateness. And those I've listed in this, but they're also straight out of the statute. And so when you are called upon to make a judgment on appropriateness, you have a wider field of considerations to weigh in making that judgment. And what you get into is, and this is incidentally 3B on the second page, and it lists the
3C?
3C, yes, 3C, it says, quote, the historical value and significance of the building or structure, that's 1. 2, the general design, arrangement, texture, materials, and color of the features involved. The relationship of such factors to similar factors of buildings and structures in the immediate surroundings, there's your 360, and knowing the setting, which is the next item. And then the relative size of the buildings and structure. If it is way out of sync with its size, it's too massive, then it could be very inappropriate in a ranch neighborhood, or where having a 3-story or whatever could be deemed to be inappropriate for the under the Act. Now, I'll give you also something that gets into making general recommendations by me or to you. You want to be objective, not subjective. Okay? Now, this is one of the biggest problems we have in administering this act, because it's so easy for an individual committee member to say, I don't like it. I don't like this. I don't like that. And that is a subjective personal judgment. You're not on the committee to exercise your personal judgment. You will not see your likes and dislikes as a factor to consider in determining appropriateness or demolition or removal. That the Act works because the committees and the commission are to use objectivity in making their judgments. And if you look at these factors, they give you the tools to do that. That is, you think about, when you have an application, the historical value and significance of the building or structure. You think about the general design arrangements, textures, materials, and colors involved. You do check the relationship of such factors to similar factors of buildings and structures in the immediate surroundings. You consider the setting. You consider the relative size. Those are objective, tangible judgments and factors that you can apply to each one of your applications. And when you sit in front of a homeowner or an applicant or somebody that wants to do something, and you use those factors to explain your judgment, that is, when you deliberate or whatever, you say, well, gee, this doesn't fit with this house next door. I went out there, and you get into those objective things where the homeowner can go out and say, yeah, that takes their attention off of you personally. But when you personally say, I dislike it, they don't relate it to the act, they think it's personal, and they take it personally. And that can create resentment, hostility, and a bad decision, because so easy to say, well, do this, do that, I'll like this, but I won't like that. It is deadly from both a public relations approach to the applicant and to you with your decision, because you're not on this committee to use your personal feelings about preservation or about whatever you feel you're most interested in. That is not objective, it's personal, and the statute does not put that down as something to consider. To the contrary, it gives you objective standards. And if you can start to use those when you discuss, well, is this appropriate or inappropriate? And you talk in terms of these objective standards or factors or features, then it's very hard to criticize your decision because they are facts. And they're not your personal facts. You go out and you observe and you say, gee, this doesn't fit with this area, it's incongruous, and in fact is the materials, or like somebody wants to put up a steel house. You look at it and you say, gee, that material is very different from the cedar shingle captain's house or whatever next to it. And so you can utilize these factors in order to make your decision, one, accepted by even a reluctant applicant by saying, well, gee, they said, well, let's talk to the architect and let's see if we can make it fit better or make it more harmonious with what's there. And it's not that one of you says, well, gee, I don't like this application, I don't like this design, and then you offend the architect who really feels he created a perfect house, and you get yourselves into trouble. And I just, if I could wish anything, it would be to wash those words like and dislike from your vocabulary when you're sitting on these things, because it's being recorded and it builds hostility personally because you're saying, I don't like it. And that takes on the burden for the decision to approve or not approve. And you don't have to do that. You can use these standards. The courts have accepted them as objective, that they are constitutional, and as long as you focus on those and utilize those when you're talking and when you're discussing an application before you or asking questions, it gives you a objectivity and a judicial role as opposed to a personal role. So that's my pitch on that one. But as I say, unfortunately, I see it when I look at the videos and I see what happens, because it's so easy. I mean, I do it Anybody can say, I like it or I don't like it. And that gets you, though, into trouble. And you want to stay away from that. Now, I don't know how much time I've burned through here. Oh, okay. I'm going to stop at this point. Urge you to read this, urge you to read all those other things that the state provides you with, and to familiarize yourself with the bulletin. And if you have questions, I am available. I will take calls. My official role is to deal with the chairman of your committee. He serves on the commission. I am retained by the regional commission. That is my role. However, I find it good to take phone calls when people call and have a question and allow me to give my opinion on it. It can head off a problem before it gets too big and so forth. But as I say, let me throw it open. Questions?
I have a question. The number 6, which is the energy advantage of a proposed solar or wind device,
Yes.
under the certificate of appropriateness considerations. And we've struggled with that, of course, as do all of the committees, a lot. And can you explain what is meant by that? How is that supposed to affect our decisions?
Well, first off, you're thinking of it when you're dealing with solar panels. The whole committee is.
Yeah, that's
They're
all we're
very much
dealing with.
aware. No, it's what it does. It causes you to think about that factor or that aspect to it and how important it is. And it depends, as we found both with litigation and with experience, that the question of solar energy with a lot of people is a dominant decision maker, and that their belief in solar panels should be everywhere, that it doesn't matter whether it's the Hoxie house or what it is, because solar is so important, that the solar energy issue is a very prominent issue politically, and there are splits of opinion in a lot of people. And so when you're administering this, you're going to have to make a judgment on a case-by-case basis, not a uniform. We adopted the exemption to loosen up and permit more, easier approval for solar panels. That was a decision as the commissioners reached a point where they felt, okay, this is what we can do, and we will permit these to not go through a public hearing. And that basically created the opportunity for a lot more solar in the historic district. However, the counter to that is there are standards to put solar up where it's not going to be so visible, because they do have a appearance that is recognized as being very different.
Yeah.
And we've had court cases and we've had litigation in which it's been well versed. I mean, the issue of solar energy or efficiency is one that the community grapples with. And you know from your long experience that one of maybe this will help answer the question. Our district is a living district, okay? And what that means to me is that it evolves in choices and decisions about appropriateness. That is, you're not, many historic districts like Williamsburg and Sturbridge and some of these others are stuck in a particular time period, and the houses are supposed to be that way. Our historic district, which is the largest in the country as far as we know, basically is a rural historic district. It has a lot of undeveloped land. It has a lot of open space. It has a very large area. And it's growing all the time with new people coming, new ideas, the committee's turnover in membership, that as solar or any of these things like wood material, etc., when we first started out, some members on a committee, one of the committees, not Yarmouth, said all houses should have cedar shingles on their roof.
Say, that was the big change.
That was something that the members felt preservation. We're going
Yeah.
to make everybody have cedar shingles now. And that didn't work because it wasn't reasonable. And also, the district, as it evolves, has changes in personnel, changes in opinions of what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate, and also education, that as you look at the solar movement and so forth, it has broadened in many respects because there's a lot of information out there saying everybody should have solar and everybody should be aware of it and everybody should be
Allowed
not
to.
saying no.
Yeah.
But the reality is that we're not going to just say, okay, everybody can have solar, everybody can have contemporary, everybody can do this, everybody can do that. There has to be a balance, and that balance really comes from the committees, from the grounds up, okay? It's something that is a part, and that's why local knows best in the sense that I spoke of earlier, with the importance and significance of having local people who live in the community, who walk down the street, talk to their neighbor, get elected or not elected, depending on the temperament of the local community. And that's one of the reasons also why the regional commission doesn't dictate, if they can avoid it, to the local committee and say, well, we feel, our member from Orleans thinks that Yarmouth should have sandwich board signs freely up and down 6A, or somebody from out of town is making a judgment on appropriateness. And so, but as I say, you need to approach this district as being a living district because 40 to 50,000 people live in the district and own their home and their castle.
Yeah.
And
Many
so
of them were built in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, yeah.
So you have a variety of both architecture and appearance and community feeling
Yeah.
about what the district should be doing. I mean, all 6 of the towns, I go crazy because you go to one town and it's this way, and you go to another town, it's that way. But I've learned to tolerate that and to encourage the regional commission to use decisions that don't charge in and say, well, we're going to make it all the way from the canal to Orleans or Eastham and do it our way.
So,
So what does, define advantage? Define advantage for us.
Define advantage?
In the energy advantage, the
Yeah.
quote,
Advantage to the homeowner, advantage to the.
planet.
Advantage
Right?
to the guy's wallet. We had a guy come in who covered his entire front and rear roof
Yeah.
with solar panels.
Right.
So he's selling that and he's making money. He's turned his roof into a business. Am I wrong?
Well, I'd have to say that that's inaccurate, though. Yes.
No, okay. First off, when you read this section 10,
Yeah.
don't get hung up on one word, okay? Advantage, okay? What does advantage mean? What does appropriate mean? You could, to some people, it means this, to another, it means different. And that's also part of the interpretation and the application of the act that goes on constantly with your approval process. That is, you could have a committee 10 years ago that would have said one thing. Today, you've got a committee that's going to say something else on appropriateness. That allows for reasonable growth of ideas and use of material, use of design, all these types of things that are, you guys are the jury. And it's not, even though we've had a few solar panel cases, advantage is a word to interpret and can be interpreted when it's applied to a particular applicant or a particular proposal to mean this or that. I mean, take any of these words, and that's part of giving you the power to make judgments so that you will make objective judgments of appropriateness and not have an ironclad rule that every time a application comes in that is going to do A, B, or C, you're going to vote against it. That shows your narrowness in making judgments, and you get labeled very quickly. You're always going to say no to whatever feature
Right.
comes in, and then you get locked into that, and people resent that because they want, if you think about this process, let's say you're going to build a house or a structure, and you have to go before 5 people in the town who are going to make a judgment on what you can do and what you can't do. That sort of says, oh my God, what am I going to do here? How am I going to get approval? How am I going to build my dream house? How am I going to do the things that I feel I should be able to do? And that's part of the process of judgment making, and that's why it's a committee of 5. In other words, when this was set up, we didn't have alternates, and thank God we got alternates to fill in so that people would have a 5-member judgment, like a jury, okay? Not one person playing God and standing up there and saying, okay, you can do this, but you can't do that. And the difference, in just pointing out a difference between the building department or the planning board and you folks is you have more discretion to decide what's appropriate. You have more features. What happens with the building inspector is he gets out his ruler and he says, okay, is this, 30 feet, does this meet this standard? I've got the building permit, everything is spelled out, and the decision is right here in the book. For you folks, you get to go out and look at the setting, the neighborhood. You get to look at what's being proposed and evaluate it. And if you evaluate it by these criteria or these features, you will be objective, and hopefully you'll gain community respect because it's not your personal feelings, it's what you're pointing out of observing that is out there. Somebody else can go and say, oh yeah, gee, this house next door is a colonial, or this one is a contemporary, or whatever it may be. And so your decisions will progress and change as building materials change, as needs and requirements will change.
So Jim, so I have felt that a large part of our role is to inform and educate the public. Mm-hmm. And to that end, I'll cite an example. Mm-hmm. Someone will come before us and assert that their windows are rotted and they need new windows on the front of their house on 6A. And I have offered to come pay a visit to assess the condition of the windows. And very frequently, the windows are reparable, my estimation, at lesser cost than replacing them with newer windows that won't last as long. So in order to achieve that kind of visit without violating the open meeting law, obviously if I went by myself, I think I'd be fine. If I went with someone else, I'm not in violation because it's not a quorum. But how do you feel about these kinds of informative and educational site visits?
Your phraseology is nice. However, I do
Make it nice.
I do have problems with that. The committee members, and particularly the chair, are supposed to keep their objectivity on a project coming in. And if you go out and talk with the applicant and examine things with him or her and discuss it, you start to taint your role in having the hearing. In other words, you're sort of potentially at risk of moving to a decision on appropriateness outside of a public meeting. In the ideal, your committee would only consider what they hear in the open public hearing, not what they hear on the street, not what they get from the applicant calling them up and saying, hey, I want to come in and do this or do that. Will you support me on that? Holy smokes, you're selling your opinion before you even hear the case from the abutters and the applicant. And that really creates a high risk of a mistake being made when the hearing comes up, because all the applicant has to say, well, gee, Bob came out and we talked about these windows and whoa, this is really bad. And then everybody watching the TV is going to say, what's Bob doing out there talking behind the, you know.
So let me pose it in a different way.
No, it
'Cause
sounded really good.
I'm going to
that.
press you on this a little bit further. So an application comes before us. So it's a public meeting, and the applicant wants to replace their original windows on the front of their house on 6A or on another scenic byway in town. And they want to do it because a window company has come to them and said, your windows are rotted, they need to be replaced. And we asked the question, or one of us asked the question, are you aware of the fact that frequently these antique windows can be restored? And we have resource materials that we can give you regarding that. Objective resource materials, not ones that we've created or conjured up. So are we okay so far in having this public discussion about?
During the application process with transparency, yes, you can do that, but you still, when you read the list of things that I've cited, the 10 do's and don'ts or whatever, one of the things is you do not want to design an application coming before you. Committees easily slip into that role of saying, well, you know, if you move the chimney, or if you do this, or you do that, maybe it would be appropriate. You get yourself on a slippery slope because the application is changing in your hearing. And your judgment is supposed to be on what is filed with you tangibly, the elevations and what they want to do. It's not supposed to come and ask you to design their home. They are supposed to, if you take the roles, your role is not to tell an applicant how to get an approval. Because when you go there, you wind up designing their house instead of their doing it. And you get applications that are being decided in your hearing room instead of with the architect and the applicant doing it as they should to give you an appropriate application. And the problem when you start designing it here is that the abutters and public don't know all the changes, and suddenly they think, because they came in and looked at the plans or saw Lisa before the hearing and said, okay, this is what they want to do. I'm not going to worry about it. It looks good to me. And they walk out, and then suddenly it comes into your committee, and you flip it all around and change it, and they're furious. They're furious at you because they were told it was going to be this, and now it's that. So one of the things that you may have to do, and particularly when they're changing the elevations, okay? You should say, we're going to have to continue this so that people can see the elevations, you can examine them with time, and you're not under the gun to make a decision while everybody's standing there and you make a hasty decision and a mistake gets made.
That brings me to the thought of a friendly addendum, which is an addendum that the board and the applicant agree on. A friendly addendum. Okay, so it's an addendum, because we, a lot of times it'll be something simple.
You can use the
On a
cupolas.
very large application for.
Okay, yeah, no, the committees do put conditions on approvals, and that's the way you do them, to the extent that you say, well, okay, if
But we're changing the application.
yes, you are, instead of denying it.
Right.
Okay, and within reason, that can be done. The problem is, as it gets to be a bigger change or a bigger variation, you potentially offend and create an eyesore, potentially, that is going to get a lot of attention that you really don't want to have responsibility for. And, you know, the old adage that I used earlier about conflict of interest, when in doubt, don't. When in doubt, don't let the applicant get you into redesigning the house in the hearing. It takes a lot of time, effort, attention, and you don't have a chance to really look at the proposed changes. You want those changes on a plan. So you can continue the application, and that is, they've got to agree to a continuance and for the 45-day rule, but you continue it, or else you vote it down and be done with it. And make them come back and just say, I'm sorry.
That'd be like tabling it, tabling.
Tabling, I know Yarmouth does it. I don't like tabling because you still have the issue. You should continue it to a date certain and not table, because what's a table mean?
So how does that process work then? Give me an example. So if you say, okay, there's too many changes, we're going to have a continuance.
To continue.
You vote to
Yeah,
continue.
you vote to continue, and the applicant signs the 45-day extension, so you can do it. If they don't want to extend it for you to consider, their new set of elevations, then you turn it down. Be done with it. So there's really a lot of incentive for them to say, okay, we'll put it off, till the next meeting or whatever, so we want to continue it, and you have an agreement to continue. But you don't want to get yourself too far out on a limb on making changes to what the neighbors saw or relied upon to determine appropriateness. I mean, it's a real problem, and it's throughout the district, okay?
May I also say that by gently suggesting how an application might be improved, without a vote, what you've done is imply that the improved application will be successful.
Right.
But without a vote, you don't know how that's going to go when it comes back. Therefore, to your point, the committee's exposed itself without, as it were, a good moat between it and the public.
Okay, but the thing is that in openness and fairness, with the assistance of the chair and the assistance of the membership, they should be able to say why they're continuing or why they're asking to have it continued, and what is going to potentially happen, because the issue has come up during the hearing, public hearing, with transparency. So if the committee members, or some of them, are not pleased with what's going on, they say, well, it should be continued, and if you want to bring us new elevations showing us what you're doing, because otherwise you stand with a pen and start writing on the plans, and it really gets bushy and very difficult for the building department to know what the heck you approved.
Right. But I think what Paul is also saying is, and when the discussion is happening, and for instance, the doors are off-center, that we see that the doors are off-center. Might you want to reconsider that and come back? We can continue this hearing so that you can reconsider the look and its appropriateness.
They can even, they can force a vote and take their chances coming up to the
Right.
regional commission.
Yeah.
So who
They have
proposed?
choices, you have choices, and it's using the choices to find the right path forward so that everybody feels fairly satisfied with what the end result is.
So who would propose the continuance, the applicant or the committee?
I think that the chair probably oftentimes does that because he reads the temper of what's going on, and he will suggest that maybe this should be continued and that we hear this later, and if you're making changes, get them into us sometime before the hearing. Don't just walk into the continued date with new plans. You want them filed so everybody can see them, so that they are available to be reviewed. So you should put a requirement on the new material being submitted to you so that the public can have a chance to see it.
So the 2-week, the
45
2-week
day.
requirement, the 2-week requirement for posting for the public,
Yeah, you
2 weeks in
gotta,
advance of the meeting.
you gotta have the stuff available so the public sees it. Otherwise, you're prejudicing the public's perception, or the abutters' wishes, so.
So Jim, this was a good start. I think-
All right, when do you want me back again?
I
can
think,
see
I
it
think,
coming.
I think if you're willing,
No,
we
I-
should do it again because I have.
There are a lot
more
of
questions.
unanswered
I have more
questions,
questions.
and I talk too much.
No, this was excellent. I'm very grateful.
Certainly. I think this is the way to do it. An hour, that's it.
Yeah.
Because even we get tired and you get too much. And so, but I will be available to come back. I don't want to make it every meeting you have.
No.
Chicken.
Maybe we could get together and draft an agenda for the next time for you to look at and see if you approve it and are willing to
I mean,
address
if you give
yourself
me
to it.
advance notice, I'll go read the books.
All right. Thank you for coming, Jim.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. Seriously, it makes my job a lot easier if you guys are following the rules and things come out right, then I don't get appeals. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, but anyway. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Do you have a? Good evening, and welcome to this meeting of the Old Kings Highway Committee of the Town of Yarmouth, which is being held in accordance with Chapter of 470 of the Acts of 1973 as amended, at 7:17 p.m. on Monday, April 8th, 2024, at the Yarmouth Town Hall Hearing Room located at 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth. Moreover, pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, considering certain COVID-19 measures, this meeting is being run in hybrid mode, which is to say live participation. There will be probably some Zoom participation. There may be some telephone participation as well. 7 new applications for certificates of appropriateness and 1 tabled certificate of appropriateness will be heard this evening in the order listed on the agenda. Please be reminded that our committee's main purpose is to review items for appropriateness and setting, and it is the responsibility of the applicant to comply with the regulations of other town boards and departments, including building, conservation, engineering, health, zoning, and the sign inspector. You should know that there is a 10 calendar day appeal period starting once a decision is filed with the town clerk. Any person aggrieved by our decision tonight can appeal to the Regional Commission of the Old Kings Highway Historic District. Our office administrator, Lisa Sherman, will be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this process. And as some of you may know, considering process, our process is to have the applicant and/or the applicant's representative come to the table in front of me, speak into the microphone, identify him, her, or themselves, and state their application without interruption from the committee or members of the public, after which I will ask for comments and questions from the committee, and after that, The public, and especially interested abutters, will be free to ask questions and make comments, and for that purpose, I would ask you to step up to the podium to my left, speak into the microphone, identify yourself, tell us where you live, and make your comments or ask your questions. So, the first item on the agenda tonight is 24-A034. It's to install a side yard fence at 463 Route 6A. Robert and Mary Ellen Babin are the owners, and FNL Home Improvement is the agent. And who do we have this evening?
Hello.
Hello, my name's Robert, and this is my wife Ellen. And we're, like I said, we're applying for the application for the fence just on one side of our property. Stockade fence, I think it measured 72 feet. We have a dog, and basically, we lost his brother last summer, and he starts wandering around, so we figured we better put a fence around so he doesn't go across the street or the neighborhood. Plus, a little privacy is good, too.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Questions or comments from the committee?
I would ask about the ends of the fence. Are you tapering them down, or are they just going to
They're
be?
gonna be hidden. It's gonna be trees.
Behind the
that- Like
trees.
if you're looking at the driveway, you're probably not even gonna see it because there's trees right.
Yeah, there's a
abutting
lot
it.
of trees.
So, yeah, there's a lot of trees.
Yeah.
And so you won't be seeing it in from the street. It's just when you get in the driveway,
It's
then
not
you
gonna
see.
go right up to the street,
Right.
about halfway down the driveway.
Yeah. Is that okay? I
So
guess?
there's no transition as you come to the
And-
end of the
Right to
fence?
trees.
And then
Go
the
right
trees
to
that
the
stop. Plus you don't see it from the,
It is buried in the trees.
So are you planning to put it right on the property line?
yeah, you know where it is.
I guess that's okay. I mean, trees do come down, but we usually ask that fences be put in with a taper at the end, transition, but as you point out, you're buried in in the trees.
You won't see it.
I defer.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Are there any questions or comments from the public or abutters and/or abutters? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and approved. I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And aye. So
You have to sign
if
something.
you'll come up and sign this document that says if you're going to make any changes to the fence, you'll let us know, so we can either accept the changes or not.
Pink, green,
Polka dots, stripes,
All right.
no.
You don't have to sign, unless you really want to.
No.
Okay.
That's it.
Smart man.
Thank you, good night.
Thank you.
Whoa. Never had that happen. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 24-A035. It's to build a gazebo at 147 Thatcher Shore Road. Tom and Francis Bigda Payton, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, are the owners, and New England Outdoor Structures is the agent, and who do we have tonight?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Bigda Payton, and you got the name just right.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think I have a picture. I think you have it already. Our idea is to build a small structure that we tried to choose to be in character with the neighborhood and the house, to essentially sit and, in hopefully a bug-protected way, look out on the backyard. We have one grandchild. He's 2. I don't see any others in the foreseeable future. Hopefully there will be more. And we think it'd be a really fun sort of thing to do when they visit in the summer.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Questions or comments from the committee?
Should I recuse myself? Oh, well, I'm in a butter, so I'm going to recuse myself, but should I leave the table or just not vote?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind standing up at the podium.
I have one question. So there's an X that's more magic marker, and then the second X, which I think it's just because there were kind of 2 spots, but it's
Let me
not-
look.
it's not critical because they're right next to each other, and either one, I think, would have been fine. One's a little closer to the flood zone.
Right. Let me just look here.
Does anybody else have that green
There's
Yeah.
2 X's, right?
2 X's instead of,
Trying to find that picture.
I can show it to you.
It's a,
Sure.
It's the plot plan.
That diagram.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just where it's going to sit, and it's,
We talked to conservation and we mapped that, at least as best we could tell, it was a pretty decent distance from
yeah,
the
setback.
the wetland, yeah.
Okay.
Trying to find that one.
You know, it's not consequential. I was just wondering if there was anything story behind it, but, because either one, as long as it's good with conservation, the site is fine.
Seemed to be okay with it, so, yeah.
Other questions or comments from the committee?
it's, but your foundation is crushed stone. But the pictures indicate a cedar roof. And you said calling it a cedar structure, but then what exactly is the roof going to be?
Well, the structure's made out of wood, and I think it is cedar, but, yeah, it's red cedar.
Okay, you have the roof down as material asphalt.
Correct.
Okay.
So,
All the rest of it is red cedar.
Yeah, it's gonna have a solid foundation, and then the structure goes on top of that.
Yeah, okay.
The total size of the structure is 8 by 8.
so is the roof cedar or asphalt?
Oh, no, the roof is cedar.
Okay, where did you see asphalt?
Well,
The
right here,
foundation.
material,
Yeah.
roof material.
That's where I thought I saw it too. So it's definitely, you want cedar?
Well, hold on a second. We have, okay, maybe I'm speaking out of school. So asphalt shingles is listed as part, so it is, the structure itself is cedar, but they do list asphalt shingles for the roof.
Would you prefer cedar?
Personally, I think I would.
So we could offer that as an amendment to the application,
I'm
that
okay
it be
with that.
cedar rather than asphalt.
Yeah, that's all right with me.
Okay. I have a question on the design. You have options here. You've circled the one with the double roof and the cupola on top.
Right.
What influenced your decision, may I ask?
My wife's preferences, to be honest.
Okay.
It's a matter of style, I think. And we were, so the house is Paul Revere reproduction, so it's colonial. So we were looking for something that was in that ballpark. I don't know, they probably didn't have these in colonial, but that was our impression in terms of the style choice.
Any questions or comments from the public or any abutters present who wish to comment on this?
there a letter that you need to read into the record? Was there a letter submitted?
There is a letter.
There is a letter, okay.
I don't have a letter.
Oh, yes. That's right. Dear Mr. Wilkins, we are writing the Yarmouth Old Kings Highway Historic District Committee to express our wholehearted support for Tom and Frances Big Dub Payton's request for approval to build a gazebo. We are their next-door neighbors. We have seen and reviewed their plans, and we have no objections whatsoever. Unfortunately, we will be traveling on April 8th and will not be able to attend your meeting to express our support. We hope that the committee will agree with us that their planned gazebo is in keeping with the historic nature of the area. Thank you very much for your consideration, Jeff Kiefer and Sue Costello. So you've got support from neighbors, always nice. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve 24-A035.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And aye. Up and sign this document. He says if you're going to change anything, if your wife advises you to change something,
Do we
you'll
need
let us
to,
know.
do we need to write up the,
Yes.
okay. Do you have a sheet for us?
Thank you.
Assume. You okay with it?
Oh, that's all right. I'll take care of the rest of it. Good luck with it. Thank you very much.
But it's like a really flat area. Everything's sloped.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to put it in the wetland area anyway, would you?
Okay, great.
I didn't get any plans, so I'm anxious to see this one.
Did you see the house? Did you see the house?
It's a little ranch house, right?
Two-story addition.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I was blind.
The next item on the agenda is 24-0, excuse me, 24-A036. It's for an addition to the house and install a split rail fence at 479 North Dennis Road. John Clohessy is the owner. So are you John?
Yes, I am.
Okay, if you would present your application, please.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Sean Clohessy. I'm presenting an application to put in, wow, that's loud. To put an addition on my house for me and my two children. So right now we're sharing about 900 square feet, and that's not going to work with a 3-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. And my daughter made me promise her that she gets a unicorn bedroom. So best way to do it was to add a dining room with a 2-car garage and move my bedroom to the upstairs. That way the kids can have separate bedrooms. I've owned the property since '05. It's on well over an acre, and I'm actually a general contractor with 20 years experience, so I'll be doing the project myself. I did the best I could to meet all the standard views and points that would normally be in any historic build, as I've worked on multiple historic properties in the town and try and blend it in with the surroundings.
Is that it, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was figuring more questions than having to speak, so.
Well, I'm about to find out. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Not yet.
Oh, and the split rail fence, if you were to look at my plot plan, me and when they cut that part of the neighborhood up, they kind of oddly cut it up. So our grass just literally flows into each other. There's no break. So half the time I end up mowing half their lawn, which I don't really mind. But like now with my kids, I didn't live in the house for 8 years. It was a rental. So now with my kids running around the yard, I figured like a split rail would not take away, still give the neighborly aspect and still like, but have slightly a divide between. And that's on the, if you're going up my driveway, the left property line that goes into the power line easement.
Okay. So this house is set quite far back from the road.
Yeah, I'm like 200 plus feet. Actually, this is the only time I've ever had to have a meeting because generally it falls under exemptions.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, there's no grills in the window because I've already got an exemption from when I just did the 10 windows in the home this past year. It's pretty standard construction, 12 pitch on the front with a 4-foot kickback, then 6-pitch dormers on either side. Tried to keep the garage doors even. That's why I moved the access door to the side, so everything would be nice and symmetrical on the front.
Quite a dramatic change to the house.
It's kind of been, I mean, I bought the place in 2005 at the worst possible time to buy a house, but the plus side to it was on 1.05 acres, so it's kind of always been the dream, but now as a single dad with 2 kids sharing a bedroom, it's kind of, the dream has to become a reality with a little bit of quickness. More borrowed time.
A little bit of sweat equity here.
Yeah, I mean, might as well cash in on the career choice, you know?
So John, I didn't hear you say the existing house is what square footage?
First floor is about 762 square feet.
And so the new addition is going to be how much
It's
larger?
about 900 square feet.
For floor, the floor or the 2 stories?
Living area, because obviously you don't include the garage in the living area. The habitable space is 900 square feet. That's actually also it's important for me to eat my dinner with my kids. And if you look at the existing, there's not a real dinner table area. Right. So I didn't want to like just put this garage right on the side of the ranch. So that's why I have that 14-foot dining room to kind of break it up to give it a more aesthetic look. So it didn't just look like there was like a garage like.
So it's like a connector.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
I just didn't want like this 2-story garage slammed right up against the side. It also enabled me, I kicked the back in a foot so that I didn't have to tie into the existing roof, so I can have a rake, the roof tie into a rake, and then.
So you have to go through the garage to get upstairs? Second floor?
Yes. Well, there's inside of the garage, if you look at the plan, there's kind of like a breezeway where you can go to the garage. If you go, you enter into the breezeway. If you go straight, you go into my bedroom, which will be upstairs, and you take the left to the dining room. The other reason too is the eventual plan is once I recover from this, is to take the back door out of the existing house so that I can extend the kitchen over 4 feet. That's why there's the slider in the back door. So that'll now be the egress and access to the backyard.
You're making it significantly larger, but I think there are other houses around you that are larger than what your
and like
existing
I said,
house
I'm
is.
on 1.04 acres. It's still, I think I'm at like, if you include the finished room that was in the basement when I bought the place, I still think I'm at like maybe 1,700 square feet, which is on a 1.04 acre is not. I actually have the certified plot plan too, if you guys want to see. I mean, I'm not even, the addition doesn't even take up the parking area of the existing home, so. And the reality is when you're going to do a 2-car garage and you're going to have a 4-foot staircase going up to the living space, you lose so much with that I actually had to kind of oversize the garage because when we scaled it out, it gave you about a foot to open the door in one of the garage bays.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Questions or comments from the public or abutters? Very impressive presentation.
Yeah.
Kind of comes with the
entertain a
territory
motion?
of doing it for a living.
Move to approve. Move to approve 24-A036.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So if you'll just sign this, as you've heard me say before. Well,
She asked me if I was going to paint the house purple. I told you guys
well, you can tell her that you did a good job tonight. You're welcome.
Do I just do both?
Just sign there, and I'll take care of the rest of it for you.
All set?
Okay, good luck with it.
All right, thank you guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
Amazing to get that size of a lot. To me.
Sounds like a good dad. Sounds like a good dad. I need to know. That's good.
The next item on the agenda is 24-A037. It's to replace a slider with a door and 2 windows at 86 Shaker House Road. Christopher and Jenna Federer are the owners, and Thomas A. Long is the agent. And who do we have tonight?
Thomas Long. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, right now, I have some pictures of what's existing there now as a 12-foot slider. It looks like a Florida room, not a Massachusetts room now. So the thought is I put a couple pictures in there from houses within, I don't know, 100 yards of the house that look similar to what this probably was, but have like one door, a window. So there, I would just be taking out the slider, put in a 9-light door, 2 double-hung windows on each side of it, as I saw what it would supposedly look like in there too. It was the last page on our last picture. So there'll be no structural change to it, because right now there's a 12-foot header above the slider now. I'm just gonna install the door and 2 windows underneath that header and match the clapboards to the front of the house, and the window style is the same of what's in the main house now. It will look something like that one. I don't know if you have that picture.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Questions or comments from the committee?
When you say it'll look like this, are you putting grills in your windows?
Yes. I have a drawing. I have a drawing in there too that I did.
Yeah.
Yes, that one right there.
Okay. Because your other windows don't have the same grill pattern, but you're going to go ahead and do it here. Your existing windows.
There's no grills in those?
Well, the only picture is where you have the existing.
I think that's a casement window. That's why it doesn't have,
Gotcha. Okay,
I thought
no
I had it.
biggie. It'll look nice.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes better with the neighborhood than that 12-foot slider.
Definitely.
That is an improvement.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Questions or comments from the public and/or abutters? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve 24-A037.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And aye. Congratulations. And
Come on down.
come up and sign the document. Right there. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night.
Good job.
The next item on the agenda is 24-A038 to replace windows at 286 Route 6A. John and Mona Antonuzzo are the owners. And looks like we have John and Mona here tonight. So, tell us about your application.
I'm John Antonuzzo, this is my lovely wife Mona, and we're here to go ahead and just apply to replace the old rotted windows that are in the house that are starting to decay, and they're not energy efficient. They leach air pretty bad, and so we just want to get those updated with more energy efficient windows.
All right, are you done with your application?
Yes.
Okay, we have received a letter, which I will read into the record. Good afternoon, Lisa and Old Kings Highway Committeeata. Reviewing the application, it appears that the windows 14 will not be paned, and it will not lend to the historic presentation and preservation of Old Kings Highway. Doug and I are opposed. Thanks, Mary. This is from the Robinsons, who are abutters to your property. So, having read that,
Well, there's more here.
you
I
have
think that's previous.
This is previous?
Yes, that would be March 31st at 10:01, and the one he just read was March 31st
Right,
at 3:14.
but they're
I'll read it anyway.
in agreement, but now they're not.
Okay. Okay, so previously, on March 31st, actually, they're both dated the same. Good morning, Lisa. I have received notice that the neighbor, Dinosaurs, are at 286 Route 6A, is applying for window replacement. We are in agreement if the windows are paned. Okay, and reflect the historic character. I wasn't able to access the plans, had the same problem with 16 Church Street. So, anyway, she amended her complaint because now she's seen the applications and it appears that they will not be paned. So, any comments or questions from the committee?
When she says paint, do we think she means grills?
I think she means individual panes. That would be my interpretation. True divided lights. That would be,
I'm guessing she means, I would interpret it to mean grills, but I believe she's here, we can ask her.
well, it's subject to interpretation.
Which
Can I say
windows are you
something?
replacing?
All the ones on the front and a few on the sides. And in the application, we have two quotes. One is for the grills between glass, and there's another one where the grill is outside the window. And so there's those two estimates. I believe they should be in the,
Oh, okay. Well then,
so driving around town, we noticed that there's some buildings that do have the grills between the glass.
this is what you're talking.
You're correct, yeah. And then there should be like also an estimate sheet that I put in there for the windows. And one has the estimate with the grills between the glass, and the other one has the estimate with the grill that's outside the glass.
You want us to decide?
We're not supposed to do that.
Preferably, we'd like the
Oh,
grills
no.
between the glass, just because the ease of cleaning, and it still keeps the look and the character of it, but,
Really?
Normally, I would have to say that, how long have you lived there? Have you lived there a long time?
it's maybe 2 years.
Oh, okay. Well, the previous owners just weren't keeping up with the maintenance of those windows that
I
are
don't
there.
know what was done prior, so.
Nothing.
Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah, I mean, the house was done in what, 64, I think?
Right,
So,
it's not, your house was, that house was, a photograph of that house is in Colonial Homes magazine, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Are you aware of that?
No,
Yeah, it's kind of famous.
oh, okay.
the neighborhood. Yeah.
Well, there you
So
go.
it's kind of touchy about the windows were facing 6A.
Yeah,
But since the house was built fairly recently,
right.
I had gone under the assumption for years that it had been redone, but it's not an antique house
Correct.
in antique terms.
Yeah,
So
'cause I
normally,
think we have
normally,
the- sorry.
yeah, no, it's okay. Normally, we would say you'd need to consider repairing those. But you are set back from the road, so I think probably we're gonna be of two minds here. That if you had the exterior panes, your neighbor's not gonna, the exterior dividers, your neighbor's not gonna complain about it.
Yeah, those are rotting, like, in the pictures, you can see
Right.
where they're rotting.
Well, that can all be,
coming apart.
that can all be fixed, but
Yeah.
nonetheless,
Yeah,
I think it's usually less expensive to fix what you have.
yeah.
But if you're gonna be removing the aluminum storm windows, right? Those will be gone.
Yes,
So that's an improvement.
right.
I'd consider this a positive improvement.
Even with the
Even
grills
with the fact that
interior.
they are not really the original windows, but the original windows aren't that old, so they're not,
Because right now, we have like plastic on the inside of the windows because it's
Yeah.
the way they're rotting, and the sills would need to be replaced because literally you can see through in
yeah, I
spots,
saw that,
so
yeah.
we just wanted
So the interior sills or exterior sills that are rotting or all the way through?
the exterior part.
So
where
is
it's like-
Window World going to, they're going to repair that for you out of wood, or do you know what material they're going to use for the sill repair?
I believe they said it was like gonna be a composite of some sort, whether it's wood or composite, I'm not
Wood with it.
entirely sure.
Well, no, it'll be wood.
So, probably wood, yeah, so,
No, maybe not, actually. We can buy, you can buy plastic, but it has to be painted. So you're not gonna be able to tell from the street.
no, I mean, it's so far
back.
away, it's, yeah.
If you're undecided between grills between the glass or simulated divided lights, sounds like those are the two options.
Yeah,
You're not thinking about the exterior applied option.
right, so we're looking at, we would prefer the grills between the glass, again, just for.
The thing about grills between the glass is it's true that this is not an antique house, but of course it's prominently situated on 6A in the heart of the historic district. So appropriateness would suggest, in my mind, that you want the windows to be compatible with your neighbors. And when you're going to remove your combination storm windows, obviously the appearance of your replacement windows are going to be much more visibly apparent from the street. The grills between the glass are not going to give the same appearance as either of the other two options. So you might want to, I don't know how the rest of the committee feels about this, but it would seem to me that it would be easier.
I think in
Who,
the second quote, sorry, the
ahead.
second quote has it with the grill outside, that's divided, what do you call that, simulated divided?
Yeah, there's one that's
First one does.
$2,000 more.
Right, that
And
would
that's
be
the
the
one
one
that's-
that's got
yeah.
the grills on the
That's
outside.
the simulated divided light, in my mind, is more in keeping with the historic nature of 6A.
I think that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I also see a quote in here for sliders. Are you replacing sliders too?
No,
Okay.
no. Oh, that might be the basement windows which are broken.
It says two light
Slider.
sliders.
It's a basement
Oh,
slider.
okay.
window.
Oh,
I think that
It's like a
added
basement
that in
casement.
after.
Okay.
Not sure if you got it in there, but they're small basement windows that are,
We saw the bad pictures, that's for sure.
they're like in the back of the house.
Yeah.
Where and it's,
So they're like casements that slide back and forth.
yeah, it's just a single pane of
Oh, right.
glass.
Oh, they don't slide or open. They're
No, I
fixed.
mean, they're,
Okay.
yeah, I don't even want to touch them.
And so what color do you intend in the windows? White, like the existing?
Just keeping it the same, yep. So nothing will look different.
And are these replacement windows where they pull out the sashes and put in a whole unit that fits right into the opening?
Yeah, because the ones that are in there now, it looks like they're just screwed in. So they would apparently just take those out and then put these new ones in.
So they're going to be a little smaller than the existing windows.
Might be a little bit, I think maybe like a 1/4 inch on either side, where it might be just a little.
Okay.
Yeah, the application does specify grills between the glass.
Good, Ken, good note.
400 series DH all-weld GBG. Any other comments or questions from the committee?
so there's SDL is simulated divided lights with the
Grids between.
with those applied to the exterior, not the interior, right?
Simulated is both sides.
Because we have exterior applied, and then we have simulated divided lights.
I believe simulated is inside and outside.
I think, yes,
Here.
SDL's inside and outside.
Oh, those are inside and outside, I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
And some companies have a spacer in between to make it look even more authentic, but it appears that Window World does not offer that option, at least it's not presented to us tonight.
okay, so, well, we're not gonna make that decision for you, but, I think, the, how to say, the board would be more amenable to, voting in your favor.
We should consider the
We had
letter
But
to.
we can't decide that for you. You'd have to decide and tell us what you want.
Oh, we're happy with either option, so
Oh, well, that's nice to hear.
All right,
whatever you,
that's great then.
it's fine.
Good.
Then,
So were we to vote to amend the application to specify simulated divided lights rather than grids between the glass, you're fine with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
You understand the convenience of cleaning your windows will be somewhat mitigated by that feature? You have to clean between grills, okay? Any questions or comments from abutters or other interested members of the public? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve 24-A038.
As amended?
Amended.
Beg your pardon, as amended.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have to write that up?
Yes, thank you. Okay. Either of you sign, please?
Oh, that was your little.
Oh, it's my
If you're going to change your mind on anything, you'll let us know. Sure. I think you'll be happy with the windows. But you don't have to sign this week. Okay.
You sign for him.
Okay, thank you.
Great,
luck.
thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
So what was the term?
It's, you can use the SDL, simulated divided lights, if you want to. We're doing this one. Not,
I don't
The acronym is either GBG or SDL, and we're doing SDL. Okay. Thank you.
Oh. Is that yours? Yep, that's yours.
The next item on the agenda is 24-A039 to construct a shed at 1 Newfield Lane. Christopher and Megan Williams are the owners, and Salt Spray Sheds is the agent. And who do we have tonight?
Good evening. I'm the owner, Christopher Williams.
Okay. Tell us about your shed application.
Yep, I am needing a little more room at the house, so I'd like to construct a 10 by 12 shed. I believe it's the Martha Vineyard variety that Salt Spray Sheds offers. And I think you have all of the either pictures, plot plan, where I'd like to place it as well. It's supposed to have a little loft on the inside. It's going to have one man door, one window.
Okay.
Board and batten?
Board and batten, yes, sir.
Is that it? Okay, questions or comments from the committee?
I went by today, I don't recall your house, what the roof was on your house. Is it asphalt shingles?
Asphalt shingles.
It's the same dark gray that the shed will match the shingles on the house? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So this came before us as a certificate of exemption, and I requested for a COA. Thank you for complying with that. Because of the proximity, this is a corner lot, and it's quite visible from West Yarmouth Road. Also, there's another road, the cut-through road.
Pine Street.
Thank you. That intersects, so it's a sort of, there's a lot of traffic there, so it's highly visible. And ordinarily, were it not for that, I would have exempted it. And then we discussed maybe moving the shed to the opposite side, but there's, because of the topography of the land, that actually goes up as you approach
Yes.
the other back corner, so it would make it even more visible. So it's sort of, I decided to let the committee decide on
Lesser of
the
two
appropriateness, and you're, as I understand it, amenable to either location, either.
Yes, I would prefer lower, the one, the original down by West Yarmouth.
Okay.
There is, down the road, we'd actually like to put up a fence to probably block that off,
Okay.
and/or plant something
Okay.
that'll block that as well, so.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Any questions or comments from abutters or other interested members of the public? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve 24-A039.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience with us.
No problem.
Okay, right there.
Sign and date.
You may date it, or I can date it. Either one, the signature is what's critical. Thank you. Good luck with it. Good night.
Night. Oops.
The next item on the agenda is 24-A040. It's to install a fence in the rear of 2 Village Lane. David Welsh and Shannon McRoberts are the owners. And I assume we have David and Shannon here tonight.
Oh, yes, I'm David, and this is Shannon.
I judge that. Okay. All right, and thanks for presenting your application to us.
Of course. Yeah, we bought the house a couple years ago, and we are recently engaged, and we would like to put a 6-foot stockade fence on the back of our property line.
That's some engagement gift.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I noticed that there's an existing fence on the Union Street side. Will the new fence meet with that fence? Will come together at the
Yeah,
corner?
we'd like to cut the corner, and I think it's going to be about 3 feet or so, and just connect the two.
So they will connect, so,
Yes, at
okay.
6 feet.
Same height.
It's the same height?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
that, yeah,
that
there's existing
corner.
stockade as well, right?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't visit the property, so. Is there any fence in the back of the property?
That's where they
There's
want to put
not in the back of our property. If you look at the plot plan of our butters, our property, and I think it's maybe 4 Village Lane, our neighbor, it matches the corner house, and they have a fence on their half.
Okay.
You know, so it wouldn't really connect to that
Connecting two
fence,
fences.
but it would be on the same side of the back of their property.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Nope.
Questions or comments from abutters or other interested members of the public? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve 24-A040.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Stand right there, please.
One signature.
One signature is sufficient. It's very smart of you to let her do it. So, good night. Good luck with it.
Good luck.
And that brings us to the tabled application, 24-A020, which needs to be untabled.
I move we untable 24-A020.
Second.
All in favor of untabling the application signify by saying aye.
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 And aye. And now we will hear 24-A020. It's to install 40 solar panels on the side and rear roofs at 16 Church Street. Peter Barnes is the owner and Venture Home Solar is the agent.
Woo.
I have Peter Barnes, the clumsy owner.
Okay,
Flying in.
so this is your second time here, and we have received some letters, which I will read into the record. Dear Old Kings Highway Committee, we are the homeowners of 1C Church Street in Yarmouth Port and are writing to submit comments about project 24-A020 proposed by Peter Barnes, owner and Venture Home Solar agent, to install 40 solar panels on the side and rear roofs at 16 Church Street. We are in full support of the installation, placed to optimize energy production as determined by the solar installer and homeowner. We are not opposed to visibility of the panels from the streets, either from Church Street or Route 6A, and in fact support solar panel visibility. There is evidence that having panels in the public view makes them more socially acceptable and furthers adoption as described here, which is a link to something. Climate change is posing a great risk to Cape Cod, and the more we as a community can do to help accelerate a transition to clean energy and show our support for our neighbors' actions, the more future generations of Cape Codders can continue to enjoy all we love about the Cape. Sincerely, Mira Subramian. Did I
Yeah.
get all the syllables?
You did.
Subramian and Peter Prothero.
Stephen.
And another letter. Dear Old Kings Highway Committee, the revised version removes a set of panels on the back west roof and adds panels to two roofs facing south. The two new locations can be seen from 6A at the Church Street intersection as well as from the southern part of Church Street. Our previous response is attached on page 2. Our objection stands. Thank you, Michael and Abraham Grader, 17 Church Street, Yarmouth Port, and I'll read the previous letter dated March 14th. Dear Old Kings Highway Committee, as much as we would like to accommodate our neighbors, we object to the proposed installation. The solar panels proposed by the owners of 16 Church Street, if installed, will be seen by anyone walking along 6A and Church Street, and there are many who do so on a daily basis. Please see the attached photos, which were taken yesterday. Solar panels will be an eyesore and will lower the value of all the neighboring houses. We took pains to preserve the style of the neighborhood in restoring our house at 17 Church Street, and we expect our neighbors to do the same. Imagine if we had replaced our lower clock with a digital clock instead of restoring the original one. Anyone who cares about the historical character of our neighborhood will agree that solar panels don't belong here unless they can be installed where nobody but their owners can see them. Thank you, Michael and Abraham Grader, 17 Church Street. And then, dear Lisa and the Old Kings Highway Committee, attached is a photo of the direct exposure of the proposed solar panels from the intersection of 6A and Church Street. They will be in full view of 6A during fall, winter, and in partial view during summer. In addition, there is ample area on the roof of a detached garage near the property boundary line that could house the panels, avoiding sensitive exposure to 6A and Church. Placing the panels on the rear garage will also remedy the exposure to 4 Church. Please review a Zillow link. Thank you, Mary and Doug Robinson, 4 Church Street. Dear Historic Committee, I was shocked to receive the request for variance to add 40 solar panels to a roof that abuts my property in the historic district of Yarmouth Port. My property will be impacted by the glare, and this addition detracts from the historical quality of the neighborhood. This addition will also set precedent for future modern additions and solar panels. Recent research has shown that degrading solar panel degrading solar panels leach lead and cadmium
I think she means cadmium.
into the atmosphere, posing an environmental debate. As the committee that protects the historic architecture of this lovely area, I hope you will decline this request. Douglas and Mary Robinson, 4 Church Street. Dear Kings Highway Committee, here's a concerning article on the negative effects of solar panels on waterfowl. In addition to the historical concerns, the sides of 16 Church Street property to be fitted face 6A and are also visible from Church Street. So, yes, no.
Oh, I think you might as well.
Okay.
Let's be thorough.
With the permission of my fellow committee member, I'll read this one as well. The role of this committee is to preserve the character of the Old Kings Highway Historical District, and covering multiple roofs with solar panels in full view of the street runs contrary to that role. It takes thought and effort to modernize a property in a sensitive and historically informed manner, but it can be done and it's worth doing. I also think that Liz Argo should recuse herself from the vote since her job creates a conflict of interest. Abraham Grader, 17 Church Street. I think that covers all the letters.
It does.
Okay, so, got a division of opinion here expressed, so.
I would expect that. It's going to be an emotional subject. Many of us live there, of course, because we love the history and the architecture and the beauty of the homes on the Cape. And there's a reason why I moved all of 2 miles from Bray Farm to this house, because we saw it in the Cape Cod Times while we were still living in Detroit. I saw the article on a Tuesday. We put an offer in on the house that Sunday. We are completely attached to and want nothing but the best for that area. I think the Venture Solar people in the latest designs have come up with a much better way to reduce visibility as much as possible. Yes, we didn't jump over to the detached garage to put anything on there. I think they're trying to keep it as reasonable as possible. There'd be a significant amount of trenching to run those lines. What conduit I have going to that detached garage is very small, and I couldn't pull anything more through it. So they would either have to cut through the parking lot or around it. Either way, that's a significant increase to the install price. We are working hard, and we will do what it takes. I had a friend of mine years ago, not that long ago. I sat on a board much like yours in Michigan, and the argument was about the new digital road signs, billboards. And the argument was made, because they show things for a period of time and then they're gone, and they do it, that it distracts the drivers. And people will see one in their turn towards it. And then we had an expert that said, yeah, maybe the first 2 times they saw it. They drive by it every day and they never really pay attention to it again. I know people come and for summer to see beautiful neighborhoods, and I think they'll still be able to walk through it. I think you would have to know the panels are there and really kind of go out of your way to see them. And I agree with other people. I said this last week. The infrastructure is very delicate on the Cape. We need to do what we can to lessen our impact. And everybody's, whether you're recycling or what you're doing, everybody's contribution counts. I drive an electric vehicle, and I would love to know the feeling when I plug that in at home that it's coming from my solar panels, because that completes the circle and doesn't make me a hypocrite. So, and again, it's an emotional unit. They're speaking from their hearts, and I understand this, but I really think we can come to a compromise and accomplish this. That's an incredibly large house, and its carbon footprint we've tried to minimize, and we want to continue to. Just not for our benefit. I'm not going to be here long enough to see it, but for my kids and for the other generations to come, this is the way we need to move forward, and we need to protect things here on the Cape.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the committee?
Mr. Barnes, what color is the roof? Is your roof?
Currently, it's a dark shingle, asphalt shingle.
Gray.
Like, it looks like a light gray.
Or do you mean the-
It's like light gray in these photos, so I was curious.
Because those will be black.
No, the roof, the existing roof, asphalt roof,
Yeah,
it looks like a
that's
light
asphalt.
gray in the picture? Is it a light
I
gray?
think so.
It's,
You're-
Yeah,
That's-
it's light gray.
Without looking, I couldn't tell you what color shirt I'm wearing. I don't pay much attention to colors.
Okay, thank
well, I
you.
mean, they're not, it's not black on black.
Right, I was just curious what color
Yeah.
the roof
So
was.
which panels are we, do the letters address that can be seen from 6A? Because that's really what we're concerned with, not, I mean, I'm personally concerned with Church Street, but that's not, doesn't come under our guidelines, the current new guidelines. So which panels exactly can be seen according to the letters from 6A?
I think they may be the panels that we're moving. If you look at the new layout you should have received from Venture, we have moved some of the panels to the other side of the roof, more towards the north side.
So those letters don't address the new layout?
I'm sorry?
The letters that were read into the record don't address the new layout, they address the old layout?
Yes, because Venture's been working on it, I'm not sure if they're on the line.
I don't,
Well, no, one letter does. The revised version removes a set of panels from the back west roof and adds panels on two roofs facing south. The two new locations can be seen from 6A at the Church Street intersection,
So I
as well
believe-
as from the southern part of
I
Church
believe
Street.
these three, 1, 2, 3, those three roofs face south. 1, 2, 3, is that right?
I think, well, there's a
I think
very tall
somebody,
wall of evergreens between that.
Right, but those are the roofs that face south, correct?
Sorry?
Are these the roofs that face south?
Yes, those are the roofs that face south.
Thank you.
The question on the roof color is relevant because the Old Kings Highway Regional Historic District has, within the last few years, maybe the last 2 years, adopted an exemption for rooftop solar panel arrays, but they have to qualify under 10 specific considerations, one of which being that the roof shingles should be of a dark color to blend with the solar panel array. So you come close to qualifying for an exemption under which we would have no purview. We would have to approve the application, but you
I
don't
think-
quite.
I don't agree.
Solar panel exemption is automatic. If he qualifies under all 10,
It can
it's
be-
automatic.
It can be seen from Route 6A.
Well, then it doesn't qualify under the exempt, that's one of the disqualifications. Well, okay, we're saying the same thing in different languages.
Okay.
If he complies with all 10 qualifications, he's
Exactly.
exempted. He doesn't.
He doesn't.
Okay, so,
But he doesn't apply, not just one, two,
Agree.
correct?
so that's why he's coming before us.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so, just now that we've got that clear. So,
I think there's actually
It's,
three. There's three things that don't comply.
Three.
There's supposed to be a rectangular,
maybe it would be
Dark
easy
color
if I were to read these.
712.
Plot plan showing location of house on property, you've done that, check. Drawing showing accurately the layout and location of the solar panel arrays and any related wires, systems, or features to be placed on the exterior of the dwelling, check. Roof length equal to or less than 50 feet, I believe you qualify. Roof height equal to or less than 35 feet. Roof pitch equal to or less than 712 pitch. Roof shingles shall be of a dark color to blend with the solar panel array. Solar panel arrays shall have a contiguous rectangular pattern and shall not be broken up with visual gaps or disjointed sections. Solar panel thicknesses shall not exceed 2 inches. Solar panel height above roof shall be less than 6 inches. No change in the to the appearance of the building except for the addition of the panels. And Do we talk about under the establishment of the general heading before those specifics, under the establishment under Section 7 of Chapter 470 of the Acts of 1973 is amended of an exemption for flush-mounted, non-glossy, all-black rooftop solar panel arrays that are to be affixed to a single-family residential dwelling that is less than 75 years of age. That's a problem, too. And is not part of a listed contributing property on the Massachusetts and National Register of Historic Buildings and Sites, and is not visible from Route 6A or any other designated scenic road. There, that's it in its entirety. So, other comments from, or questions from the committee?
Well, I would weigh in, and I think that Venture and Peter have done a great job of trying to find a compromise. And I'm no longer in the business for whomever was concerned about that, but I do know enough about solar, and I believe in every word that Mr. Barnes said in terms of the need for it. I do drive an electric car. It's powered by my solar. I live in Old Kings Highway Historic, and it does feel fantastic to be able to not have to use gasoline. That has no bearing on our purview here. I drove around and did the 360, and my interpretation of the view of the solar panels is you're going to have to look real hard. I was on a part of the hearing on the solar panels on the Dennis Police Station. And part of their decision, it was a struggle for them, that happens to be in their historic district. And they decided they timed how long they would have to look away from the road to see the solar panels, and based on that, they decided we can put the solar panels on. So I kind of have that feeling about this. You do have a neighbor who's very in support of it. You also have neighbors who are not in support of it, so which makes it very difficult. But I believe from my viewing of the house that it's going to be glimpses and not an objectionable, very visible solar installation.
But it can be seen.
If you'll look for it, you will find it.
No, excuse me, I don't mean to sound flip, but along those lines, there's houses on 6A and on Church Street that have lights shining on them. And those lights have solar panels.
What do you mean?
Electricity wasn't run to them. They've got solar panels shining lights on their house. Now, I can see that when I walk by the house.
I don't know that that's going to be a
I can see it when I
good
walk down
argument.
6A. I can point out the front yard of the house that's got them. Granted, there's a big difference in scale. But do you really lose your illusionment of being in an old historic town when you see solar lights in the front yard? Or if you crane your neck and you can see something up on somebody's roof that you really have to look for to get to?
I mean, I'm with you, but I will pass the...
My comment is that I know that there are a lot of people that walk 6A and also walk Church Street. And they're much more visible clearly from Church Street than they are visible from 6A if you're walking and glance over. So I feel that they are visible from 6A, and there are 5 criteria on the exemption that you don't meet. So that's of concern to me.
So which panels would have to be removed that can be seen? Is that going to make this whole project null to any,
Well, if you
is it still
rely
gonna
on
put
the roof, if you,
electricity?
Come on.
If he removes the things that can be seen, or can he move them to some place where they can't be seen?
That's what I was
That's
trying
what
to
he did.
It's not up to us to decide how much it costs if you have to move it to a garage where it can't be seen. We don't consider how much it costs.
You know,
Can I ask then,
and if I have to do it, I'll do it. You know, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I don't want to cut back on the kilowatts too much.
Right.
There's no
Is
point
it
in
coming
just throwing a
close to your
couple out there.
usage, the output?
I'm sorry?
Is your output coming close to your usage?
Somewhat. I'd leave that up to Venture. They've run the numbers on it, but it's a very large house, and we're doing a few more projects to
electric
make it
things.
more efficient.
You want to plug in your car. It doesn't-
Putting in heat pumps too.
Right. Are you going to have a battery?
That's that. I have a backup generator, but
Okay. A storage battery, no.
No.
That's not part of this plan.
with the backup generator, it was already there. If I didn't have the generator, I would have gone with backup battery system as well.
I was thinking for your car.
Yeah, well,
No,
I
you
could
don't need
still
it for
do
your
it
car.
from the generator.
Yeah.
I had one in Michigan as well, and I could charge off that. We lived on a area that lost electricity a lot.
Uh-huh.
So we have abutters here, and I believe I recognize some of them. So I think now I'll ask for any abutter and/or abutters who wish to speak to address us. All right, and would you step up to the podium, sir? Thank you. Identify yourself and where you live.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Council. I'm Doug Robinson, Doug and Mary Robinson. You've probably seen a few letters at 4 Church Street. And we do want to welcome Peter Barnes and his lovely wife here to the neighborhood. We're happy he's here. And we just would love to see this project go through, which works well for all the criteria required to keep, as Peter pointed out, the historical nature of our neighborhood. And so the big issue is, of course, these southern-facing panels. If, to me, and we'll have other people speaking, but if we could eliminate, or at least Peter had another way to move those southern-facing panels, maybe that would be another alternative. I've got just a picture here off of the Google Maps. It just shows the whole layout of the property. I don't know if you can see it from here, but from where you're sitting, but a lot of roof space, of course. Now, Peter has on the east side of his house about 25 panels or so, a majority of the panels. But as Peter also mentioned, that the garage has a considerable amount of space. And maybe there's a little bit of issue on running wiring either through under his driveway or maybe around it. But maybe that's something he could look at. But to me, if he could move all those panels from the southern exposure to the garage, maybe that would work. So that would be one of my suggestions, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Can we ask them to be specific about which ones they think he needs to move?
Can I ask, Mr. Chairman, do we know at what rate,
These are all south-facing.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes, sir.
do we know at what rate the improvement to panel efficiency, what rate is that occurring at? If you go back 25 years,
About 15%.
15%. So in 6 years, the number of panels required, for 7 years, the number of panels required, is that cumulative or flat?
That, like your furnace, it operates at an efficiency that is, its rating. So solar panels, because they don't work at night, have a very low efficiency.
They're improving at 15% per annum, you think?
So that, no, I'm not answering how much they're improving over time.
Talking about the construction of new panels.
I don't think
Is
she
that what you're
understood your
trying to
question.
figure out? What they're doing is getting more watts per panel.
More?
Watts
Well,
per
then-
panel.
right, then that's, I'm wondering if time solves Mr. Barnes' problem. And that if the panels produce a lot more watts over time, a lot less panels are needed.
So you're saying if they're more efficient as time goes by and
Yeah,
technology
if we go back
improves?
if we go back to before you could plug the electric car in, it was unthinkable.
How about if we just look at the project that came before us 2 weeks ago, and he wanted to add panels? He has 350-watt panels on the back of his house, and he's adding 410s on the front of his house. So and that was 2022 when he came in front of you to have the ones on the back. So that gives you how fast they're changing. From 2022 to 2024, they got about 100 watts more per panel.
And what's the baseline? What was the start point?
For him?
No,
Oh, for me,
100.
when I started, 200.
So 200 has now become 300 or more?
It's now up to 410.
410.
And I can look and see what yours are rated at. Do you know?
No, I don't know right now.
I'll look.
Okay.
Not off the top of my head. I've looked at the spec.
Are there any other abutters who would like to address us?
Hi, everybody. I'm a Rami Grader from 17 Church Street.
Good evening.
You read my notes, so I'm not going to repeat myself. I think that you have to decide whether you are responsible from 6, the bay, to maintain the nature and the character of our houses, of our neighborhood. It's a very simple question. I commend Liz for her great green energy work. Fully supportive of it, just like Doug said. I have no complaints. I just don't want to see them. I don't want to see them when I walk on Church Street, and I think you need to consider that, even though it's not in your bylaws. You can see them, the big panels on the eastern side. I give you a diagram, this diagram. You can see them from the library. You can see them from the other side of 6A as you walk. And I agree with you, there are hundreds of people that walk there every day. And from the intersection, you can see all 3 of them. I know that I'm an abutter, but there are other houses that are not abutters that can see it. The inn from the upper levels, they can see all 3 of them. The 2 houses next to us can see them. I can even see the one proposed on the one close to Church Street. I can see it from my driveway. So I have no objection, Peter. I think it's a great idea. I think green energy, when it makes sense, is fantastic, and we should all work for it. But can we find a way so that we don't have to see them? That's all. It's very simple. And I really thank you for the opportunity to being here. I did not know, Liz, that you are not in the business anymore. So it's nothing personal. I'm just.
No problem.
I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page.
No problem.
And we appreciate the opportunity to being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And these modules are 425s. They're 425 watts each.
Are there others abutters? Yes, sir.
Hello again. John Antonuzzo, 286 Route 6A. Sorry, but Peter, and from the backyard, I can see, well, from the driveway, I can actually see your entire house. I want to say that my wife and I are in full support of anything that he wants to do. And we've had solar on our other house, like you, and we know how great it is. It's times change, technology changes, and so I think it's something that I'm all for. So anything that you need to do to make changes, if you want to put them on the back of the garage, whatever, absolutely, you have our blessing, consent to do whatever you need to do to get those over to a place where, people feel more comfortable with them. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Barnes, when you were here before us, and again tonight, maybe to a somewhat lesser degree, you expressed more than a willingness. I would characterize it as an eagerness to come to a meeting of minds with your neighbors to see if you could find an amicable resolution to satisfy your desire for efficient energy and their desire to have the protections that Old Kings Highway afforded applied to them in this instance as they see fit. So I would like to see that done, if possible. And although I realize that you've made the effort to come here twice, as have the abutters, I'm wondering if it might not be advisable to continue this one more time to see if you could meet with your neighbors directly which I understand has not yet been done? Would you be willing to entertain that idea and come back one more time to see if we can put this to bed and make everyone as happy as it is possible to make everyone happy,
Including us.
including us? Right.
I've worked with all kinds of coalitions to try to get certain projects done in the past, and I've also want to keep an open mind because any input is appreciated. I've built buildings that were green certified, but I didn't have a lot of solar experience on private residence. So anybody that can help me out with this, I am more than willing to listen.
All right.
One thing I learned so far in life was I sure the heck don't know everything, and if I don't listen to the people that know more about something than I do, I'm going to make a mistake. So I'll take any input I can get, and if we can solve this amicably and keep the nature of the neighborhood and everybody as happy as possible, compromises go both ways.
Good. Well, where there's a will, there's a way. So,
The thing is, we can't advise you on this. I mean, you know, you've already, the application is active, so you can't ask us if we're going to vote for something in the future unless you bring the application before us. And then we can discuss it and vote on it.
The last thing I would want to do is to build something that would be an irritant and an eyesore to my neighbors.
Wow.
And they have to come home every day. I love living there.
Yeah.
And if I had to look at something, and I've lived other places where that did happen, it would irritate me.
all right.
And I thank them for taking the time to come to this meeting and express their opinions. And I would like the chance to sit down with all of them and see if we can't come to a.
Well, I feel that's very well stated, and I will entertain a motion to
Motion to continue.
continue the application.
Second.
All in favor of continuing this application?
Aye.
Aye. Excuse me, aye.
Aye.
Aye, and thank you all.
Peter, I just wanted to say I really appreciate your willingness to work with your neighbors. A lot of people would not be that way.
Thank you very much.
Amen.
Thank you all for taking your times, and I know you get a healthy paycheck for doing this.
We want a raise.
We're going straight out.
A conference one time, and Abby Hoffman was the speaker, and the topic was how to be committed without getting committed.
All right.
All right.
Well, on that happy note, thank you all for coming.
Abby Hoffman.
Good night.
How's your dog? Your dog.
My dog?
Don't you have a big yellow lab?
Lab.
You do, right?
Yeah.
Oh, how is he?
She's great.
Oh, Sadie, right?
Yes,
Oh,
very
I
good.
haven't seen her recently, so.
Well, I've been away.
Oh. She'll be liking to
She
come
was on
home for a
vacation.
while.
She's home now.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Isn't the speed at which all things electric, so like the Tesla, there's a new 3 version. There's a new version of Tesla 3, just come out.
Of electricity?
Tesla.
Yeah, so there's a new, the
It's
three,
the accent. It's the accent.
And I don't know about Teslas.
right. I was using it as an example.
Oh.
Everything about it is much better
Oh,
than
yeah,
the original
well,
one in 10 years,
Well, but-
including its battery life,
supposed to be
and the
talking.
price has gone down. My question is, at what
Further-
rate
This is further
is
discussion.
our solar panels getting better?
Not fast enough to warrant, oh yeah, we can't have these kinds of discussions.
So,
Apologies, Chairman.
gentlemen, excuse me, if I could ask you to step outside so we can conduct the rest of our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Night night.
Okay, so we need to approve the minutes of the March 25th hearing.
I
Apologies, Chairman.
move to approve the minutes from the March 25th hearing.
Is there a second?
You can still second even if you weren't here.
Yes, anybody could. I'll second.
Very good.
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor who are qualified to vote signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstaining.
Aye.
Okay, approved. So, as I know all of you are aware, our vice chairman has resigned, and I want to publicly thank Rick for his service to this committee, his dedication to the mission of Old Kings Highway, his passion for preservation, historic preservation, and his tireless energies that he expended on our behalf. And I'm sure I share with you all a wish for the best for him in the future.
Here, here. Here, here.
Now, we need to elect a new vice chairman. So I will entertain a nomination for vice chairman.
Nominate Cindy Ecker.
Is there a second to the nomination? You're a voting member tonight. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Seconded.
Yes, I interpreted that as your second. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of Cindy's appointment as vice chairman of this committee signify by saying aye.
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 And aye. Congratulations, Cindy. Okay, now, at the last meeting, I read a letter, and I was informed by our lawyer that the proper way to have done that was to have it, was to have the public duly notified, so that we were in compliance with the law and not in violation of the open meeting law specifically. So I'm going to read the letter again, for the record. It's to Joanne Crowley, Chair of the Planning Board. Dear Ms. Crowley, we, the members of Yarmouth's Old Kings Highway Committee, believe that the list of scenic roads and the scenic road map on the town's website need to be updated. Specifically, owing to their historic significance, scenic beauty, or both, we advocate for the addition of the following roads: Thatcher Street, Church Street, Winter Street, Center Street, and Old Church Street. According these roads, scenic road status will enable us to give them our prioritized protection, thereby aiding our committee to fulfill its mandate to preserve and protect, quote, the unique aesthetic and historic character of the historic district, and that's excerpted from the introduction in the Old Kings Highway Regional Historic District Commission Bulletin. It is worth noting that with the exception of Route 6A, all of the roads currently designated as scenic were done so in 1973 and 1974, a half-century ago. Route 6A was so designated by act of the Massachusetts General Court in 1992. Updating the list and map is long overdue. Parenthetically, we question the inclusion of Weir Road and Longs Road on the list and the map. In actuality, Longs Road is not a road, but a long dirt driveway to a private residence at the end of a cul-de-sac. To sum up, we urge the Planning Board to initiate whatever action or actions it may deem necessary to realize the update as soon as it is practicable to do so. Respectfully, Robert Wilkins, Chairman of Yarmouth's Old Kings Highway Committee. And these are letters for you all to look at. And I will not ask for a vote unless you're prepared to make a motion to adopt this letter and to have me send it out. But if you'd like to digest it and bring it up again at the next meeting, that's fine.
I had one question that I actually, the process. I was thinking from my viewpoint, if I were a resident on one of these streets, I would like to be informed of the possible change to its designation. So that's why I would like to know that as part of this before I sort of rush headlong into it.
Well, that's why I'm redoing this tonight.
Okay.
So that the public was
Yeah.
duly notified. Now, whether they're paying attention or not is
Well, that's
another
what,
issue.
that's what concerns me, actually.
But they've been notified, legally notified.
Yeah, but I hope
So-
that the planning department, part of what planning would do is notify everybody who's got an address that would be affected.
Well, I don't know what the process would be on the planning board, how they would be making their decision, how they were going to be informing people if they decide that they need to inform people beyond what we've done tonight. That's up to them. But
So this letter is a recommendation to the planning board. And if we were to move to approve it, that you'd get the support of the Old Kings Highway Committee in favor of the letter to go to the planning commission. Is that correct?
right, the letter is a suggestion or a recommendation.
Right.
They can decide whether they want to do this or not.
So we as a
But
committee need to decide if we're in agreement with your letter.
in
and vote.
essence, yes, that's right.
So we did see it 2 weeks ago. It's pretty substantially the same. There's, I think, one line is different about the Longs Road.
Yes, because I actually found it finally. Siri found it for me. I couldn't find it. And so I asked Siri, and Siri took me to, there's a post, says 82 Longs Road, and it's this meandering
Longs live there?
dirt driveway. It's, you know
Longs
where
live
it
down
is? It's interesting. It's right next to Jane and Greg Hildebrand's house at the end of, at the end of Weano. Weano ends in a little circle, and and Jane Hildebrand, who sat on this committee for a number of years, lives next door to the dirt driveway, which I didn't clock it. It's probably 150 yards long, something like that, and it opens up into a field and a residence. That's it.
Well, if the committee feels they are in a position to vote, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Well, why don't you make the motion?
Okay, I
to
make
see
a
where it
motion
goes?
to submit Bob's well-crafted letter to the planning board about adding Thatcher Street, Church Street, Winter Street, Center Street, and Old Church Street as recommending they become scenic byways in Yarmouth-Port.
I second.
Just for clarification on the motion, so are you advocating that I delete the part
No,
about?
no, sorry, I'm not. I'm in favor of the letter as written.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of submitting the letter to Ms. Crowley of the Planning Board signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you all. I will, oh, by the way, I think you're aware of the fact that in compliance with the open meeting law, there will be no items discussed. New business will not be on the agenda unless there is actual new business that has been posted and the public is duly informed henceforth. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Good night.